Welcome back to the Football Terrace, another episode of Straight Facts. It's Wednesday, so it means I'm joined by LA's finest. Jessica Black is here. How are you?
My name is Jessie Karen. That's my
Jessie
name.
Karen. Yes, sorry, I got your name wrong. Jessie Karen. Jessie's the new name, and Karen's your nature. So yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was on what was that, like Instagram and on Twitter. People in the comments were like, Jessie Karen. And I was like, is this real? Like they just merged two names together. The name that you're calling me randomly, Jessie. Am I five? Like, no. And then the whole Karen thing, I don't really know where that came from. I think it came from the Karen Klopp thing.
I
Somehow it
think,
ended up being
yeah,
me.
I think it's because you're miserable. A lot of it. You
Oh,
can be
yeah,
very
probably.
miserable on shows. You remember that show where you wouldn't answer any of my questions? Do you remember that, viewers? Do you remember that
I'm
one?
not even miserable. Like, out of the two of us, like, I'm the fun one and you're not.
I don't think so. I mean, but listen, Jessie Karen is the new name. So everybody get that in the live comment section now, or in the comment section below if you're watching the replay of this. Get that done, people. Get that done right about now. To everyone who's become a member of ours in recent times, thank you very much indeed. The link is in our description, live comment section, and you can scan the QR code below me if you want to join from as little as 99 pence per month. A few of you scan that, by the way, just to let me know it works. I'm really intrigued to know if it works or not. Especially you guys, the QR code is more for people watching it on their televisions, because a lot of you are like, I can never click on the links because I'm watching on my TV. So there we go, the QR code for you to get that done. But maybe a little bit less of an explosive show today. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Um, yeah, your show with Lee was good. You know,
Of course it was
lots of
good.
views on that one, lots of comments on that one.
We broke a record.
Congrats.
We broke a record. The most commented video in the history of the Football Terrace. We're just shy of, I think, 1,700 comments. And YouTube automatically deleted 400 because they were too abusive. So over 2,000 people commented on the show, which was crazy. So, yeah, it was an interesting one with Lee yesterday. I'm sure we're going to come up on some of these points later when we get onto Arsenal. But I had to call it out yesterday. I like working with Lee. I agree with a fair amount of his points as well. I just don't understand this notion of not being happy with your team progressing, not happy with your team winning, and not recognizing the improvements. I actually think seeing the improvements feeds better into the argument of pushing for more from your club, because you've seen for a small period of time where you've been running well and doing the right things, the improvements. So there should be more of a, that's great. That's proof it works. Let's keep going. For me, that's my mindset in life. So, yeah, I had to call it out yesterday. And obviously, me and Lee had a good set too. And if you haven't seen that show, check it out after you've watched this. It was definitely an intriguing one. But lots to talk about today, though. Lots of news circulating. Paul Pogba calling Man United dead, or the season dead, but essentially Man United season's dead. Paul Pogba suffering with depression, and we're going to touch on that today. And Paul Pogba to Chelsea Football Club is on. And I have had that reliably confirmed from someone that works at the football club, works directly for Chelsea. Chelsea have had talks. Of course, everything's stalled right now while they're going through the ownership change. But a lot of people at Chelsea think they will go back in for him again. And there is one other Premier League club. I'm just waiting for confirmation on who that is. So we're going to talk Paul Pogba. We're going to look at two Arsenal players as well, looking at new deals. You've got bukayo Saka. For me, I'm not going to say this later about him, what I think about him. But looking at a new deal at the club, we want to really touch on how much is he worth? What's the club going to offer him? We're going to be looking at William Saliba as well, who Arsenal want to give a new deal to, but he's kind of talking like he maybe doesn't want to stay. So we're going to go into that, and we are going to have a bit of a debate about the Chelsea fan outrage. Is it real? Is the outrage from Chelsea fans towards the Ricketts family real from everybody? And we're going to delve into that, so bear with us on it. Long, straight fact show today. Any questions you've got, make sure you are getting your member chats and super chats will always be prioritized first, as we always do on the Football Terrace. So get them into us now. We won't always say them straight away, but we'll come to sections in the show and do that. But Paul Pogba, I mean, I have to start with Paul Pogba because this is the biggest news around today. And Which bit do you want to start with? The slamming of Man United, the depression that he's suffering with and been suffering with, or the link to Chelsea? Like, which of these three do you want to start with, Jay?
I guess the part of, Paul Pogba is just so divisive, I guess, in your fan base, and I guess I want to start on the part about him kind of saying that the season is dead. Most Man United fans say the same thing, so did he lie or is he speaking facts? And you put out a tweet earlier today saying Paul Pogba speaking facts. I'm glad he has called it out. If you're not backing his words, you are the Glazers. And I'm sure that it has tons of retweets and likes and shares. So what were you thinking behind that tweet? And why do you think Manchester United fans have a difficult time hearing the truth about their club, even if it comes from a player?
Look, you're right. Paul Pogba is divisive. I call these people the Glazers because they are doing the Glazers' work, whether deliberately or by accident, and they haven't quite woken up to this. For me, they're doing the Glazers' work. And I look at this from a simple standpoint of Paul Pogba is getting towards the middle of his prime years. He wants to start winning. He needs to start achieving. Football players have a different outlook on football than fans do because theoretically, Man United are here until the day I die. That's it. We've got, hopefully, fingers crossed, God willing, I've got 50, 60 years left on this planet for Man United to have some good runs again. Footballers have a 15-year, generally speaking, career, give or take, some a bit more, some a bit less, but about 15 years to play their football at the highest level. So they have to be more cutthroat, they have to be more decisive, and they have to move themselves on. Now, Paul Pogba's been flirting with a move away from Manchester United for a very long time. Since January of 2018 was the first time we saw him, his agent start to kind of offer him out to other clubs, essentially. And for me, if we were run properly, we would have given him an ultimatum back then. We would have given an ultimatum and said, do you want to be here or not? No? Well, we will sell you. Because Pogba's never been consistent at Man United to the level that we wanted. Why? Changing of managers, which he slammed in his interview. The changing of his role, which he slammed in his interview. All the things that we as fans have defended Paul Pogba with, he is feeling himself. Change roles, change of managers, change of system, change of directions of the football club. These things governed by the Glazers, who are our board. Stop separating the board from the Glazers. They are one of the same damn thing at Man United. Educate yourselves. We have led to talent like Paul Pogba and many others regressing, not reaching their full potential, or stagnating at the football club. So I back Paul Pogba's words. And he says this year it's dead. We will win nothing again. Whether it's with Man United or in another club, I want to win trophies. That is absolutely right for him to say this. United, if we don't restructure and change the way we operate, we are never going to win major trophies. And I'm telling you now, a talent like Pogba, a talent like Sancho, talents like Bruno, they are not going to have their thirst quenched by the occasional League Cup or Europa League. FA Cups could do a bit of that, but they are talking about winning Prems or league titles and Champions Leagues. That's the caliber they are at. So Paul Pogba is absolutely right to slam Manchester United into the ground for the way in which they have operated. Some of those managers, it kind of leads into the depression side of things. This guy has been very, very brave, in my opinion, to open up and speak about his depression and how it started in the Jose era. He spoke, I had depression in my career. I don't want to, sometimes you don't want to talk about it. Sometimes it's hard to. He spoke about how it started under the, I think he said that it started sort of in the Jose sort of time period, is what I read in a tweet somebody put out about it, and what I read in the article. He speaks very openly about how footballers, they might make loads of money, but it doesn't make them impervious to mental illness. And I think football fans have got to, I've been campaigning about this on my socials for a long time. Stop the abuse. Criticism is fine, but stop the abuse. And it all really started under the Jose, the whole virus thing. People turned on Paul Pogba. Now, it's almost like he hasn't done things to always help himself, with his agent offering him out and some of the interviews his brother, agent, and even himself have given over the years. But this is where Man United still control this situation. Sell him then. The fact we kept him when he didn't really want to be here is all part of the problem. And what I'm seeing from a lot of Man United fans, back to why I tweeted what I did, is they're trying to turn this into, how dare Paul Pogba say we've had a dead season? How dare Paul Pogba walk away from a mess that he's helped to create? Pogba ain't created this mess. Bruno ain't created this mess. Rooney didn't create this mess before he left. This mess wasn't created by Fellaini or by Juan Mata joining or any player. It wasn't even created by Moyes or LVG or Ollie, and fans still focus on this. It's been created by one group of people, and it's our owners. So I'm so happy to see Pogba call it out. Very sad that he suffered with or still suffering with depression due to what he's doing. Get yourself out of Manchester United. Move yourself on. And the fact that 2 big Premier League clubs are looking at him as well, this is going to end up being very, very embarrassing for this club in when he goes to Chelsea or City. Because City, I've been told, are the other club that if he goes to one of those 2 clubs and kills it there, it's just going to expose this club for how far we've fallen, because we are not a big club anymore. We're big on paper, we're big in terms of money, but we are not big in terms of ambition or how we're run. We're run like a tin pot cowboy organization.
Yeah. Where to even start with this? If you're upset that Pogba has gotten to the point where he's basically telling everybody that, Manchester United season is over, it's dead, be mad at the Glazers for that, because he should have been gone a long time ago. The fact that you had a player that has been uncertain about whether or not he wants to be there, but is still there 4 years later, just speaks to the level of bad management that's there. And Pogba is a very talented player. We have debates all the time around what is his level. Is he world-class? Is he not? He's a world-class player. He has world-class talent, but he's unable to show that at Manchester United because the environment doesn't allow players to be that way. It's just not there at Manchester United, and he's not the only player that has suffered at Manchester United. And I think with Pogba, especially when it comes to the abuse part, or like him having the depression that he has, I think there needs to be a level of empathy from fans. And what I get tired of seeing is, well, you get paid blank, blank, and blank. Almost like you're rich, so take our abuse. Like you don't have a right to be depressed. Some of the most depressed people in the world have the most money. Money does not solve all your problems. And equally, humans do not deserve to be abused. And you should always have empathy for somebody who's going through something mentally. Even if you look back at just a week ago with Rashford, people were going at him because of what he did to the fans. And he said something back to the fans that were there after the game. But did you see what the fans were saying to him? He was going to the bus and the fans were, hey, you had this bad performance, so we get to do blank and blank and blank to you. And so with Pogba, I do feel bad for him, right? And I don't think the amount of money that he makes is relevant in the conversation around whether or not it's okay to abuse him. And that mindset has got to be untangled because it's toxic. It's a toxic relationship between fans and players. Pogba is going to leave Manchester United, and it's probably for the best. But what's going to stop the next Paul Pogba happening at Manchester United? It could end up being Sancho. It could be Rashford. It could be anybody. Yeah. And so that comes from the tippy top. And I don't really I understand why Manchester United fans would be upset, because they're like, well, you didn't perform to your world-class level at Manchester United, so you're a part of the problem. But ultimately, the reason why he didn't perform and why no players of that elite standard perform like that at Manchester United, especially over the last 5, 6, 7 years, is because of the way that the club is run. And that's just the reality.
It's very true, because Bruno was used as the stick to beat Pogba with. He came in first 18 months. For me, his performances were on this is the irony in all of this. His performances were so good. Not everybody's cup of tea in terms of his style, but his performances, the goals he created, the goals that he scored. See, Pogba, this is what you should have been doing. What that then made happen is Pogba's fanboys come out and consistently attack Bruno. You fast forward 2 years after joining, Bruno is now where Paul Pogba's been for large parts of his career. This will happen to Sancho. This will happen to Varane. This will happen to all the players we signed this summer. Every single player we have signed goes through this process that Paul Pogba has gone through. Of course, Pogba has to take accountability for some of his performances, some of the things that him and his team have done. But I still look at it overarching. You know, the fact we've allowed Pogba to do these things and we've done nothing as a football club is the embarrassing point. It would never have happened in Fergie's day. And people say things like, oh, football's changed. It ain't like Fergie's day, Terry. No, it hasn't. You're telling me that Pogba could behave this way in a Klopp team. Pogba could behave this way and his agent could behave this way in a Pep team. He couldn't behave this way for Arteta. Arteta would not put up with it. It would be, you are gone. Irrespective of what the fans or the media say, those three managers and clubs, Chelsea, listen, just see what Chelsea do with Lukaku, but they wouldn't put up with it. It would be, look what they made Lukaku do. They made Lukaku come out and say sorry for what he did. Because that's what Man United should have done to Paul Pogba. If we made Paul Pogba do that the first time this happened, we would have either he'd be gone and we'd be onto somebody better. There'd be more discipline within the club, or Pogba would have got the message and gone, do you know what? I'm going to get my head down and work hard. We'd have a better Paul Pogba. Now, the link to Chelsea is interesting. We are going to go to your super chats in a minute, people. The link to Chelsea is interesting for me because I spoke to somebody that I know very, very credible at the football club. I know you know them as well. When the news came out today, and they said to me, Chelsea are one of the two Premier League clubs that have held talks with Paul Pogba. First thought was, he's been such a flop, hasn't he, that two of the biggest teams in England want to sign him still. That shows you how good a player he really is. Chelsea have had talks. There is thoughts that Chelsea will go back to having talks with him later on. Of course, they've had to stall things because of the sanctioning and the selling of the football club. When you look, though, at Paul Pogba, a lot of people think he'll leave England and he'll go abroad. The two teams I believe that it is. One is Chelsea. The other team I believe it is Man City. Are there two better clubs really and truly for him to join in Europe other than Chelsea and City right now? In terms of managers, squads, the size of the league, the ability to win Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues. Could those two clubs of Chelsea and Man City, in your opinion, offer Pogba everything he wants?
Yeah, that's the reality of, world football right now, is that the best teams in the world are all in England. And they also have the biggest pockets, and they're probably going to be the only teams that can pay his wages. And in terms of competitiveness, absolutely. We see that there's a gap when you watch the Champions League games, the gap between the other teams and the English teams or English-based teams. So, I mean, it would be easy for Pogba to pick up and move, from Manchester to London and still be able to compete at the highest level and get the wages that he wants. And I see in the comment section or in the chat, a lot of people are saying, well, Chelsea's not going to want to pay his wages. Why not? Why not? Like, if you're going to be at the highest level, you're going to have the best players. Like, I can see Chelsea wanted to pay those wages and bring in that player and sit him next to Conte, or bring in a Tchouaméni and put those two next to each other and just play those two and just boss midfield. Like, I think the reality of it is that it would be a good opportunity for him to stay in the English Premier League because he'd be playing at the highest level. And there's not a lot of teams like Barcelona, they're rebuilding. Real Madrid, we know they need some sort of rebuild. Juventus, they're good in their league, but like, what are they doing outside of that? So it would be easy for him to just pick up and move. And I can't see a reason why Chelsea would not want him and would not be willing to pay his wages. You have a couple of players naturally going on freeze this summer. There's even like some rumors of Jorginho maybe even leaving. They can free up wages for Paul Pogba. It's doable.
And this is where football fans have got to understand. Paul Pogba is so powerful commercially. Yes, people go, his wages are astronomical compared to others. But other players won't have an issue with Paul Pogba's wages, because what the club would say back is, yeah, can you generate us this amount of income? Can you generate us this amount of traction from a marketing standpoint? And the answer is no. It's one of the most painful things for me as a content creator that for 6 years now I've been talking about when you look at what a player's value is and what they earn, if you're not factoring in their commerciality, please stop talking. You can't compare Pogba's wages to a Kante, even if you think Kante is twice the player. Kante doesn't have the marketability, the commerciality that Paul Pogba had. He just simply doesn't. If David Beckham was playing in this era, David Beckham would be paid as much as Messi's and Ronaldo's because commercially he was so potent, and you have to pay people for their reach. So Chelsea would generate a lot of money because of Paul Pogba. I look at it this way as well. Look, I think he might go. Real Madrid's a difficult one. They've already signed Camavinga, and they're looking at Tchouaméni. Maybe they go down that route. Barca's an interesting one. Barca seem like they really want a bit of a cheat code at the minute. You know what I mean? I keep seeing it on socials. There's a lot of P&P going to Barcelona, and it seems to be serving them well.
He knows. He gets it.
If I was advising Pogba, I would say go to Chelsea or Man City if either of them are in for you, because they are ready to go domestically and internationally, which we don't know if Barca and Real Madrid are. We don't know if they will be come this summer. Although, look, Real Madrid are really good. I still don't put them in the top 4 to win the Champions League this year. That's what I mean by ready to go. And maybe Pogba's part of that. He could seriously stay in England and do that. His family are here. He's settled here. I mean, Man City, it's not like it hasn't happened before since Sheikh Mansour's owned the club with a different version, but with Carlos Tevez. Walk across the city, sign a big deal, keep your family settled. There's only going to be 2 games a season where you're going to get any stick for this, because every other fan base in the world is going to cheer you for doing that to Man United. This is facts. You're going to become a national hero. City fans are going to love you, or Chelsea fans are going to love you. He could really do it, and I don't see a downside to it. And a few Chelsea fans say, no, I don't want him. You're thinking about a player.
You don't want Manchester United Pogba, but you could potentially get France.
But you will get France's Pogba. You'll get Juve's Pogba. You'll get a Pogba that will deliver for you, in my opinion. And if you go City, it'll be an even higher degree and level. And as a United fan, seeing this news today, it did 2 things. It made my heart sink as a United fan, but it made me excited as someone who is anti-Glazers. And I've had loads of DMs today from United fans telling me that I'm too anti-Man United. And I asked them what they meant by that. And their response was, you're always having to go at the way the club operates. And I'm like, see, you guys are so indoctrinated and so deeply in love with your football club, you can't see the wood for the trees. I'm attacking the people that are parasites at our club. I asked them, do you think the Glazers are good? No, they're terrible, Terry. They're terrible, Terry. That's who I'm going at. Well, you're having to go at the way we run things. Bruv, they run the club. Do they? I think these men still live in a mindset that we've got a Fergie-esque manager that runs everything, and it's all the manager's decision what's going on. Like, this is a fallacy. It isn't at all. And look, I want this to be another thing that turns people against our owners and puts pressure upon them to operate the club properly. It won't be, though. It will turn into a player debate. Bruno will probably get abused in some point for this. Lots of people will turn on Paul Pogba and say he's a scumbag. And the real reason this is all happening will just be ignored again. And it's painful to see. But he's right to slam the club. He's right to slag off our season. He's right to want to leave. And if he joins a rival, the only people that are to blame are the people that run Manchester United Football Club. Because he could have been sold 4 years ago. He could have been sold 3 years ago. He could have been sold 2 years ago. And we decided to keep him. It's a bit like in boxing. When you leave the decision down to the judges as a fighter, you could get screwed. They could give it to your opponent. Your opponent could pick up they could have scored it wrong. We have given, to a degree, Pogba's destiny 100% in his hands. And now your rivals can come in and they can snatch him away. And listen, if you're somebody that is still buying shirts, if you're still buying Man United sponsored things, you're buying tickets, if you're doing anything that financially supports Manchester United, this is your fault. This is on you. You are allowing this to happen by empowering the people that have embedded this terrible culture at our football club that leads to us spending £95 million on players, never fulfilling their position, changing the system and style and philosophy of the club 3 times in that 6-year period, expect him to flourish. And then when he's left on his ear, because he's got no contract left because we didn't tie him down, we're going to moan that he's going to join a team that's ready to win. A team that we've been outspending in recent years, and they're ahead of us by a country mile. There's only one group of people to blame, and that's the Glazers. And if you fund the Glazers with the current structure at the club being the way it is, No sympathy for you. It is your fault. Yes, I'm talking to you personally. You did this. You enabled it. You fed the habit. Don't look at anybody else but yourself. Sorry to
put
say it.
yourself on the big screen when you're saying that and actually point it out so they can see.
They know who they are, these people. They know who they are and everything else. By the way, if you're someone that puts the money in and you don't moan about the Glazers, fine. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the ones that are like, I hate how my clubs run, but I've got to buy the new shirts for the gram.
God.
Them mugs.
Is that how they
Them
sound?
mugs.
Oh.
That's how people sound, you know.
One other thing that I just wanted to say really quick before we get off the Pogba conversation is, wow, how many players are like these players are just running down their deals like crazy. You know what I mean? Like that is just going to
be everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually insane. Like Dybala not re-signing with Juventus, Rudiger not signing anything, going to go on a free potentially. Pogba going to go on a free. Like the caliber of players, like this is just the new way. You know, so that's also something that football fans are going to have to get used to. They want to get the wages that they want to get, and the easiest way not to be trapped by your wages when you want to get a move is to run your deal down. And if you're on so many wages, they kind of have to play you as well. You know, there's never really a time where Manchester United could just say, well, we don't need Pogba at all. You know?
Well, I think clubs have got to learn to tackle this. And I think how they tackle it is by either offering shorter deals, all coming together and say we're going to pay lower transfer fees, or you just sell the players sooner. And this is where club philosophies are going to become key, because then it doesn't matter. It's okay. Pogba's on a 5-year deal with a year extension. 3 years in, are you happy to extend it for 2 years? No, cool. Then we just sell you. It just gets we sell you there and then. We get the 60, 70 million your contract's still worth, and we reinvest it. Clubs have got to learn to tackle this, because you look at the Mbappe thing. Mbappe's going for free this summer. They could have raised a lot of money for him, PSG. And with the new rules coming in from UEFA I love the new rule, because the new rule is literally why net spend isn't real. There's going to be a cap. You can only spend up to 70% of your turnover as an organization on players. That's essentially what clubs already do. There's a cap. So selling people, like doing what PSG did, where now we're going to make you run it down for free, is going to be really detrimental to the way things are run. Let's have a look here at some of these super chats that have come in. One comment here says, Terry, I'm sure that you have bought something from Man United. Yeah, not for over 5 years. And it was a wake-up moment for me. I felt like giving that money to the club was me supporting Man United. And then it was just something my dad said to me around, why do you give money to an organization that's running you into a ground? Why are you funding it? Because if you keep funding it, they're not going to change. And that was my wake-up moment. That's something I don't do anymore. If anything in life that I have an issue with, like if I was really and truly, see, a lot of people do this. Jeff Bezos and Amazon are terrible, but they still use Amazon Prime. If you don't like anything Amazon do, don't use any products they're connected to, any of their services. Then I believe that you're outraged. I don't believe you're outraged when you moan about something. You moan about, sweatshops are terrible, but I've got my new iPhone. Like I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from you. I don't do virtue signaling at all. Pycroft here says Pogba just needs structure and a good manager that he gets at Chelsea. The free transfer will offset the high wages. Kante plus Kovacic plus Pogba can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, because you don't even have to change if you want to stick with the 3-4-3, you actually don't have to change it at all if you bring in Pogba, because he doesn't need a number 10 to play in front of him. You can just keep things exactly the same. It's actually a perfect fit. I can't lie.
It works bang on. Kante, DM, Pogba, Kovacic in front would be deadly, is what SM says here. Pep would destroy Pogba if we get him. I don't think he would. I think you'd see him elevate to a higher level than we've ever seen.
Equally, I can't see him at Man City.
I can't. I do. I said a few months ago I could see Chelsea happening, and everybody laughed at it. And I'm like, I had a little feeling. At Juve, he had Pirlo, Vidal, and I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
I'm not going to be able to say it either.
I know who the player is, though. But yes, it was always insanity to give him Fred, McTominay, and Matic and expect the same player. This is very true, Em. When you actually think, just name very quickly. This is I'm not trying to catch you up, but just do this for me. Name the top 5 Premier League midfielders of all time. Quick, boom, say it. Your top 5. Go quick.
Scholes, Gerrard, Vieira, Cesc Fabregas.
Cool. Just leave it at that. The idea of this task is.
I'm like, ah.
Think about the idea of this task is this though. Look at some of those guys. If we take the biggest three that everyone always talks about, the Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard debate. Look who they all played with when they were in their pomp. Xavi Alonso, as an example. Xavier Mascherano. You have Scholes, who had Keane and Carrick as examples. You got Lampard, who played with Ballack. He played with Claude Makelele, to name a few. Pogba had McTominay and Fred, and an aging Matic. It's so true.
But see, that dispels the whole world-class players they should be able to elevate anybody that they're around and operate in any environment. Every player, like good players, need to play with good players in order to unlock what they have in their toolbox. I hate that whole thing about like, if you're a world-class player, it shouldn't matter who you're playing with. What is that?
If your world-class talent is like dribbling, then you can dribble past anybody in any team in any system. But if your world-class talent is your defensive ability, but yet you've got no midfield screening you, your fullback's always out of position and dragging you out of position, your defense is going to be exposed. Look at the difference of Van Dijk at Liverpool to Southampton. He's not the same player because he's surrounded by more quality.
Yeah.
United is a stepping stone club. Hashtag PogBlue. Terry, I like you, but that your Pogba tweet is gaslighting. As someone that has consistently supports Pogba, the club has let him down, but he has let us down too. We all go through depression in some form. So, Adam, yeah, of course we all go through depression in some form, and we haven't kind of I haven't slammed him for that or said that if you don't like Pogba being depressed, I don't even know what the depression bit, we're all on side with that. My Paul Pogba comment to this is, yes, he has let us down on a number of occasions. I agree. But why have we persisted for 4 years with somebody letting us down? There is always the next stage. If I employ someone that's doing a bad job for me, but I keep them there, eventually it's not them that are the underperformer. It's me doing the bad job, my friend. But thank you, Adam, for that super chat. I really appreciate it, buddy. Rickett, okay, what we'll do, we'll come back to the Chelsea ones a little bit later. Name this show the Jerry Show. Poll, please.
Is that Jessica plus Terry or something?
Maybe.
We're not going to name it the Jerry Show.
Hi, Terry. New Man United fan here. We call the Gunners. Sorry, sometimes I can't read. Sorry, we are called the Gunners because of our coach was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now he is left. Why do we keep the nickname? Good try, Hank. Pogba, no interest. Deborah doesn't want Paul Pogba at Chelsea. And then Chelsea's new owner is Nick Candy. He is a Spurs fan. Ha, ha, ha. Chelsea versus Liverpool FA Cup semi-final is going to be played at Old Trafford, confirmed. Is it Old Trafford? I didn't know that. I don't know if that's true, but we know they're appealing for it. But Deborah doesn't want him. Deborah does not want him at Chelsea. Let's have a little look here at some more of these comments that have come through. We had a few more no to Ricketts. We're going to get onto that a little bit later.
For Chelsea fans that don't want Pogba, just look at the difference between Aubameyang at Arsenal and Aubameyang at Barcelona. Like it could be just that simple. Environment needs to change. He's a world-class player. If I was a Chelsea fan, I'd snatch your hand off for Pogba.
Very true. You can even use the same argument of Pogba playing with McFred versus Pillow and why can't I say that guy's name? Marquinhos. No, it's not. No, I can't say it right. I don't know why it's gone from my Marquinhos. That's it. Sorry, my brain just will not process those letters. On Messi and Ronaldo too. Listen, it's true. Like when you think about most of the greatest players of all time, look who they played with. Ali Osman will come to that question a little bit later. There we go. Pogba and Kante rarely lose together, but Gallagher and Gilmore, do Chelsea really need to move for him? I want him at Chelsea, but I don't know. Gallagher, I think Gallagher could be a longer term replacement for either of those two guys. And I think he could be you can get rid of Loftus-Cheek, you can get rid of Barkley, you can get rid of, like, there's 3 or 4.
Those are the players that you probably should be looking at. Like, and go ahead.
No, go on. Go on.
No, all I was going to say is that, like, next season, when you potentially have Pogba on your team, you're going to be looking to close the gap on Manchester City and Liverpool and also compete for Champions League again. Every competition you want to win. Gallagher and Gilmore doesn't really do that for you in the short term. in the long term, potentially. But Chelsea are still kind of in that mode of like they can develop young players and allow them to, some of them come into the team, but you're going to need to buy like ready-made players ready to go. And Pogba is one of those.
I agree. I'll drive Pogba to the bridge myself, is what JC has got to say here. Now, keeping it in, I'm going to go keeping it in London as we're talking Chelsea here. We're going to come back to Chelsea a little bit later on, people. Lots of news circulating about Arsenal today. The first one, I think it's quite a bright conversation. So we're going to go to a bright conversation here. Is bukayo Saka, New Deal, he's linked to. We know how good he is. I'm hearing that Arsenal are looking at potentially quadrupling his wages from around £30,000 a week to about £120,000 a week. Is that even enough in your opinion? Or do you feel like at this stage of his career, that's enough to keep him hungry and working hard?
Well, I mean, that sounds like a good wage to me, but I don't know what that sounds like to bukayo Saka. I think that would put him right in and amongst our highest earners at this point. We only have like 5 players on 100 and something grand a week. So I think that that feels fair. I wouldn't say that we should put him on 200 and something grand a week. I think that that's exorbitant, like for because he needs to still be working towards something potentially. But I think 125 grand a week is exactly what he should be on, like that, in that range. Because he should be in and amongst our top earners. And I know that some Arsenal fans have like this obsession with wages and, you know, messing up our wage bill because we've gotten it down, but we've gotten it down to get it back up. We're never going to be, if you want to compete, you're not going to have players on 30 grand a week, 50 grand a week, 70 grand a week. It's just not real. Go look at Liverpool's wage structure. Go look at Man City's wages. Go look at Chelsea's wages. The only reason why it matters is because the players that we put on those wages have not been good enough to have that money coming into their pocket week in and week out. We only talk about wages when the players are not performing. I don't see any City fans, Liverpool fans. I mean, they talk about Salah, but that's like the first time. You don't really talk about it unless the player's not performing. Saka, to me, is worth that. He's one of our best players. I mean, statistically, eye test, influence on the team. I mean, and players that are influencing their team to the level that bukayo Saka is on other teams are getting paid that much. And so for me, he's definitely worth it. The other part of the conversation is how long is the contract? That's more important to me. It has to be at least 5 years, you know, at least, so we can get 3 good years out of him before he starts asking for something else or asking to go if we don't do what we're supposed to be doing. So I think it's a good conversation. I think it's good that they're being proactive and getting it done. Martinelli's on 90 grand a week. You know, bukayo Saka should be somewhere around there, if not more. So yeah, I'm okay with it. This is a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
It is. And I think fans have got to look at Liverpool need to be looked at here as an example about wages. And yes, you're spot on. You knock the wages down and you rebuild, but there comes a point where you're going to have to pay massive money again if your players are as good, if your team is as good as you're all claiming it's going to be, because there's something called market forces, market value, and players know their worth because they talk to other football players. And I think a lot of these youngsters at Arsenal are very happy to be on 30 grand a week. And now we're going to talk football context, not the normal working person context. 30 grand a week for a young player is amazing. Saka is the best young player in the Premier League at this moment in time. There isn't a young player better than him, in my opinion. He's playing at the peak of his powers. He's developing. He's adding the most important element for any attacker in the world to his game: output. He's scoring and he's creating. And he's one of the driving forces behind why Arsenal Football Club are getting back to where they are now. You have to look at Liverpool as the example, though. If you look at their wage bill or the percentage of their wages to turnover as an example over the course of the past, over the course of the success and the growth under Klopp, it's slowly risen. And the more successful they become, the higher it got, because a lot of it was heavily incentivized to win trophies and move things forward. When you sign the Mo Salahs of this world, and he comes in on sort of £100,000+ a week as an already established player, scoring a lot of goals, decent age from Serie A. That's a very different scenario to the Mo Salah that now wants to renew his contract, where Liverpool fans are saying he is the best player in the world. He wants to be paid as one of the best players in the world. You can't have Saka on 30 grand a week, give him a new deal at 90, 100 grand a week, and then in 18 months' time say he's the best attacker in the league, which Arsenal fans may do. And then when he says, but I want 300 grand a week like the other best attackers get, go, no, can't break the wage structure. The reason your wage structure broke was because you were paying people that were not performing at that level that kind of money, or you were paying people that didn't want to be there anymore that kind of money. If Saka's performing, delivering, his commercial value and his output on the pitch is worth it, it won't break the harmony of the squad, him earning that much money. It simply won't. It won't break it, because Saka deserves it. If you give Saka that money and then he just stops and goes, well, I'm not going to work hard anymore, I'm not going to train hard anymore, then you've created a problem. However, if you get your culture right to begin with, which Arsenal didn't when they were giving out the contracts to Ozil, Arsenal didn't when they were paying Aubameyang that money, Arsenal didn't have it right when they were giving Willian that big contract. They seem to be moving in the right direction. I think £120,000, £130,000, different reports say different things, makes a lot of sense now. But I think Arsenal fans have got to get their head and arse into gear when it comes to the quicker you progress. Once you become a Champions League team, players want more money. You know, if you become competitive in the Premier League and the Champions League, your players, again, when they do new deals, are going to want more money. When you go into the transfer market and you want to sign people, clubs will want more money from you. The player signing will want more money because you're in a different position. And this is just the nature of the beast. Your wage bill will increase again. I'm going to hazard a guess here, anywhere from 100 to 200 million pound increase in your wages in the next 3 years, if your trajectory continues in this motion. Why? Because also your income increases, quality increases, commerciality increases. But the people that are driving that are the players. They'll go, pay me. And that's because, and they should be doing that. They should 100% be doing that, because I'd rather the money go to a player than to your owners, or stay in the club and do what with it, you know? And I think that's what's really, really key here. And I think Saka's warrants this new deal. I think he's worth this new deal. But Arsenal, the one thing that's bothered me is Arsenal go, no, we've got to keep the wage structure low. Well, then you'll fail. You'll
I
fail.
don't get that. I don't understand that. Like, we only talk about it when they're not performing, just like you said. Nobody else talks about it, but it's just like, I saw Man United's wage bill going around. It's because they don't feel like their players are performing. That's just what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a reality. And I don't believe that you can compete at the highest level with players that are just all on 30 to 50 grand a week. That's just not how it goes. And there's a lot of Arsenal fans that over the last couple of years have really kind of salivated over the way that Leicester runs their club, because they were the team that had supposedly overtaken us in the top 6, but they never broke the top 4. They never really progressed from there. They always were selling their best players. You know, they'll probably sell some of their best players this season. And I personally don't think that that's the type of club that Arsenal need to be like. You know, we don't need to be the English Dortmund. That's just not how it goes. We need to be competing. And I would prefer to follow what Liverpool have done. Self-sustaining model, but are able to up the wage bill, and all their players are playing at the level where you don't even talk about it. You know, that's what we should be aspiring to, not Leicester.
So you're spot on. So I remember having this conversation with Tom from Gooner Talk TV years ago now, maybe 3 years. And he said something like, I said something on Twitter that I'd never want Man United to have Dortmund's model. And his view was, but they're better than you at football and they run better than you. So why wouldn't you want it? Because their ceiling isn't where I want to be. I've got a higher ambition than them. Liverpool's wage bill from 2015 until April 2021, that's when this article was produced, rose by 95%. So essentially doubled in that period, because they became more successful. Players wanted to be paid more. Arsenal fans, strap yourselves in. This is why net spend conversations are nonsense. Generally speaking, having a good net spend means you've sold your better players and not bought in as high quality to replace them. Generally, when your net spend is good, or it means you've spent You've lost a big player and you spent the money to bring in some additional people. I don't know why people celebrate good net spend. Generally, good net spend isn't that great for your team when you want to win the major trophies in the modern day world of football. It isn't something to celebrate. And equally, when your wage bill goes from 150, 130, 140 million to 350 million, that's also why you're not always spending money on transfers, because your club's like, right, all the 5 new players are getting new deals next year. And the 2 new players we're signing are earning 80% more than the previous signings we made. Therefore, there's tens of millions of pounds a year more being spent on wages. So they take that out of the transfer kit. It's why net spend doesn't exist in the way people think it does, because essentially the clubs have always spent a percentage of their turnover on player expenses. Hopefully with UEFA's new ruling, it's going to make everybody understand this a little bit more. But look, you guys are doing it in the right way. You've got to build it correctly. United, go back to Ollie's first time. They were talking about lowering the wage bill, and that's what they started to do. And they slowly started to build it back up again, but they did it in the wrong way. They rewarded the wrong people. They rewarded mediocrity. They didn't get the culture right. They told us it was going in the right direction. We got lied to. It's just whether or not Arsenal fans believe it or not. And I would say the only reason that you should be scared of the wage bill going up is if you're not totally convinced your club is actually starting to behave right behind the scenes. So if you're like, oh no, we can't. Why? What are you? If it's being run right, Liverpool fans don't talk about their wage bill because they're winning trophies, nor the Man Cities, as you've already pointed out. Yeah. So why would Arsenal fans be worried about it? The only reason is because you're scared that the Cronkies are not really doing as good a job as you're pretending they're doing. For me.
Yeah, a lower wage bill is not a trophy. So I don't feel like, I think it's a good way you have to obviously lower it so that you can bring in players of a higher quality and kind of start over. That's what we're doing. And newsflash, any players that we bring in this summer, the midfielder, the attacker, the striker, they're all going to be on 150 to 200 grand a week. They are. I'm telling you right now.
Very likely. 40-year-old Virgil here says, okay, Terry, no, I'm serious. Go back and read the stories that Man United were talking about in the first 12 months. It was all about lowering the wage bill, getting the bad eggs out. Listen, it's all been said before. That's why this time round, I ain't listening to any of it. I'm waiting to see the proof in the pudding, but there we go. The other player, though, that's linked with the New Deal, but this is a little bit more of a darker subject, Terry, are you a journalist like Terry now? Very weird there, Nez. I don't know. She's not a journalist. Neither of us ever claims to be journalists. So yeah,
I'm a Jesse Karen. That's what I am.
Jesse Karen. There we go, Nez. It's really weird that a grown man would have pictures of other grown men that they don't know as their profile pictures. Very strange. Anyway, because you're definitely a grown man, Nez. You're probably about 45, 50. Very lonely. If you need a cuddle, let me know. William Saliba. All I read today, because I'm not as tuned into Arsenal news as you. The first thing I read was that Arsenal were looking to give him a new deal. Then I'm sort of seeing across social media this sort of take of, because he's basically, I'll read out his comments here. He has said, I think there will be discussions between Arsenal and Marseille at the end of May or the beginning of June. That's when we will decide. For sure, though, staying here at Marseille would not be a bad idea. That has seemed to have kind of triggered some Arsenal fans into a sort of view of Arteta has kind of ruined or damaged Saliba. You could lose out on this talent if he doesn't want to come back. Like, what's going on with this as far as you can kind of tell?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I feel like Arsenal fans should read the entire thing before they make an assumption about what he said. He also said at the end of that it's not in his hands and they'll make a decision later, right? And we know from several different sources, I think Chris Wheatley being one of them and David Ornstein being the other, that Arsenal are looking to give him an improved contract, which we have to, because he only has 2 years left on his deal. I think along with Nicola Pepe as well, they both came in at the same time. So it is time to make a decision on whether or not he's going to stay as an Arsenal player or go. And if you think about it from Saliba's perspective, he's one of the best up and coming center backs in the world. He just got his first senior call up to the French national team. He is playing day in and day out at Marseille. Last time I checked, they were doing quite well in Ligue 1. They're either right below the Champions League spots or in it. And he's doing really, really well. Almost every week, he's like player of the week, team of the week, all that stuff. So he has pretty much the world at his feet right now. And I'm sure that there's clubs that are looking at him, and Marseille is one of them. And we know that they want to keep him. So from his perspective, he pretty much has all the options there for him. Arsenal have to make a decision on him. And personally, I want him to stay. I just think you don't have, like, we spent 27 million on him. We loaned him out a couple of times so that he can get some experience. And it would be a shame for him not to be an Arsenal player and for us not to get to see him play for Arsenal at least freaking once. But in the end of the day, like, it's hard to convince young players to be rotational options when they're clearly too good to be that. And I'm not convinced that he comes straight in and takes Gabriel or Ben White's spot. I think the two of them are doing an excellent job, and they're playing in the Premier League, and that's significantly different than League One. So I am worried, and those comments didn't fill me with joy, but I don't really think that a player that could potentially be angling for a new contract goes in there and says, I want to stay at Arsenal and I'll do whatever it takes to do that. I think sometimes they make it seem like they could potentially leave to get the best possible situation for themselves. And so William Saliba is in a very good position right now. I'm hoping that he angles for a new contract and we give it to him. He comes in as that third center back option and we just move on. Otherwise, we'll be looking for a new center back. And there's not many out there that are better than him that we could bring in at this point. So it's very much, it could go either way. I could easily see him staying at Marseille. We sell him for 40 million and move on. Or he comes back to Arsenal and he becomes like that third center back for us. But it's every time there's a gap in international break, we have some sort of Saliba meltdown. And I think Arsenal fans just need to freaking relax. If we're having this conversation and Mustafi and David Luiz are in our center back pairing, yeah, capitulate. But we have Ben White and Gabriel, and those are two really good center backs. And right now, I can't freak out too much about it. But yeah, those comments don't really fill you with a lot of confidence, do they?
No, and they shouldn't. I mean, it's almost this. I kind of understand being respectful to Marseille. If the question was, would you like to stay at Marseille? Because you want to be respectful to a team that you're there and playing for and giving you, to put a lot into you. But that doesn't for me, it didn't read like that. It's almost, I don't really know what's going to happen, as opposed to I'm chomping at the bit to get back. Arsenal are improving. You want to hear Arsenal are improving. I want to help come in and make them better. There's great competition there and I want to be involved with it. There's nothing like that at all. And, it's funny, really, because Daniel Chambers says Arteta is a disgrace if Saliba is not in his plans. And there are a lot of gooners sort of gunning for Arteta over this. So it reads on social media like they're blaming him for loaning him out in the first place.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's like, I don't think every fan base is like this, but ours in particular is very much so like, I don't like Arteta, so any player that is not in his plans becomes my new favorite player. And Saliba's been kind of like a token of that. Not just because of that, but because Saliba is also very highly rated. And when you watch him play day in and day out in League One, he does look very, very good. So it's like, I'd rather see him at Arsenal. And what is Arteta doing? Nobody has said that he's not a part of Mikel Arteta's plans. If he wasn't, we would have sold him by now. So I don't really think that that's what's going on here. I do think Arteta wanted to give him an opportunity to go back to France and be closer to his family. I'm not sure if people outside of the Arsenal, fan base know this, but he had some personal issues. He lost his mom. And so being like 18, 19, and being away from family when you're going through such a big tragedy was something that they decided is a big thing for him to go back home. And so he's been loaned out a couple of times. And I do think he needed to improve. I don't think you could have just brought him in and started him, in the Premier League with David Luiz and it just would have worked out. I think he would have struggled. And our Arsenal fan base is very unforgiving. You have one bad game and all of a sudden you're the worst player that ever lived. And so I think Arteta tried to protect him from that. But I understand where the frustration is coming from. So anybody who's kind of like, okay, Arteta needs to fix this, I get that, but you can't control it at this point. Saliba, I think, is probably waiting to see what we say about what his playing time is going to look like. What competition are we going to be in? Are we going to be in Europa League, or are we going to be in Champions League? Because if Marseille is in Champions League and he's starting there, why would he want to come back to Arsenal if we're not in Champions League? So it's very much so up in the air, and he has to do what's best for him at the end of the day. I can't blame him for that.
And I get that. And I also think there's a super chat here that I don't want to ignore. It says that Arteta has said multiple times that he is in our plans. He's important to our rotation to stay fresh in all competitions. And, Reggie, I don't disagree with that. I don't think this is Arsenal not wanting him. I don't think this is Arteta not wanting him. I think this might just be, I'm really happy and comfortable where I am. It might just be Saliba doesn't want to. And this can happen in life. This is, to take it outside of football. Like, you always see it in movies, don't you? Like, oh no, I'll tell you a great example. I don't know if you get this in America. You have Dancing in the Stars, right? With the stars.
Yeah.
We have it called Strictly Come Dancing. How often do you see the celebrities and the dancers get into relationships off the back of that show? Does it happen a lot in the States?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
It happens loads here. The point is, how many of those celebrities have said to their wives or their girlfriends or their boyfriends or their husbands, I'm in love with you. It doesn't matter who I'm dancing with. You're my favorite person. And then they've gone and spent 3 months dancing and be very, very close to this other person. And then they're broken up with them and they've got with somebody new. This happens in life, at work all the time. People are, I'm happy at home. And they meet someone at work. They spend more time with them and they become close. We can all kind of have our minds and our minds changed and our heads turned. I don't think this is an Arsenal thing. I think Arteta, of course, wants his quality back. This could just be a case of, I don't know if I want to. I think I'm happier here than I was over there. And that also happens in football sometimes. And I think it's something that fans have just got to be mindful of, that how me as a United fan, or how Jess as an Arsenal fan looks at your club and your situations is very different to how professional footballers, generally speaking, view the club. And it's the irony in this. Why a lot of people go, why do fan bases care so much about academy players? Because generally academy players have the same affinity for the club you do, because they're born and bred there and they love it differently to someone they sign in at 18, 19, 20, 25, 35, what fucking age they come in at. That's why academy players are so key, because if you guys sign someone new in the summer and Saka spends the next 6 months on the bench, he'll probably be happy. I'm an Arsenal man through and through. Look at Smith Rowe sitting there on the bench after signing a new deal. He ain't crying about it because he's Arsenal. If he was a young lad that you'd signed for 80 million sitting on the bench, there'd already be talk about unrest and does he want to go back to where he came from and was it the right move? This is why academy players are absolutely key to the structure of football clubs. And most clubs have an underbelly of their squad that has come through the academy or come in at a very young age anyway and has that affinity towards a football club. But look, really good super chat, Reggie, and I do get your point. I don't think
the last part about this that's really important that Arsenal fans need to remember is that, like, if we do sell him, we're not going to sell him for peanuts. And I'd rather make sure that, like, if this is the time, if we're going to sell him, we have to sell him now. Marseille's not going to be able to buy him for just nothing. We saw that his agent, had went to go speak to AC Milan and Real Madrid. So there's going to be buyers there if he doesn't want to stay and he doesn't want to come back to Arsenal and sit on our bench or rotate or whatever. So we'll get something for him and we will move on, but there's not a lot out there that's better than him. I have to be honest. I do think that at some point we'll see him playing for one of the top clubs and be like, wow, he was once ours, but that's just the reality of the situation. Like, we can't control everything and everybody. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's anybody's fault. I have a very hard time attributing Saliba potentially not being an Arsenal player at the end of the season to Arteta abusing him in some way or hating him or not rating him. I don't think it has anything to do with that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think those bully tactic things people talk about are a madness, really. Viewers, you can become a member of the Football Terrace from as little as 99 pence per month. There is a link in our description in the live comment section or the QR code on the screen below me that you can scan. It will take you through to the right page. I know a lot of you watch on TVs or devices where you can't click on the link. So you can scan your phone, use the QR code to go and check that out. We have another super chat that came through. We're going to come back to some of your other super chats later. One says here, Arteta completely wrong how he almost killed Saliba's career. Luckily, he has a strong character to bounce back after Arteta humiliating him, is what Enigma thinks. Well, you kind of already answered that a minute ago, but Enigma, thank you very much for sharing your views. Keeping it on Arsenal to hear. Hope you're well, my friend, who's a Chelsea fan, I will add, says, which attackers do you guys think Arsenal will go for if they make the top four and if they don't? I'll hand that one over to you, Jay.
I think that list needs to be the same whether we're in or out. That's kind of how I really feel. I think I get that some players may be out of our range. I think regardless to if we make Champions League or not, we're not getting Haaland. Do you know what I mean? But I think most of the players that you look at underneath Haaland are players that we could get inside or outside of Champions League based on how serious we actually are. And if we're willing to make that push. So for me, like, I think I'm going to do a show on this soon as well. Like my kind of thing is like, okay, I would love somebody like an Osimhen. That would be a great player to bring in. He would cost a lot, but I don't really care. Everybody's going to cost a lot, Osimhen running behind. That's something that we just really don't have. We don't have a player that runs in behind and is kind of like physical and can do all the things like a complete nine type of player. I'm a big fan of like João Felix. There's a guy at PSV called Cody Gakpo. I think he's quite good. I would like us to look at Nkunku. Like all those players could play off of the left-hand side. Darwin Nunez is good as well. He wouldn't be my first choice because he plays in the Portuguese league. I'm not sure how that translates, but there's tons of players that we could bring in that we should be looking at. My thing is that I don't want that list to look drastically different if we're not in Champions League. It needs to look damn near the same.
It absolutely does, especially with the new UEFA rulings coming in, with new TV deal money from America coming in. There's money at Arsenal, and the teams like Arsenal and Man United, Liverpool are going to benefit so much through this new ruling that's on its way. There's another super chat here which says, I would rather have Rice at City than Paul Pogba. And some people listen, and some people would agree with that. But remember, Rice wants 300 grand a week, and he's going to cost anywhere between 90 to 150 million pounds. Before we move on to the Chelsea subject, Osman Ali, says, Terence, 6 players you would induct into the EPL Hall of Fame.
First of all, he would pick Bruni.
That's the number one. I was about to say, Rooney's already in, and Patrick Vieira already in. They were announced today. So, would you say Bruni? Oh, no, don't be silly. No, not that. So, I was actually about to check like who is kind of in it already. We know Rooney and that got added to it. I was just kind of looking now. There's a new one now. There's more players that you can still vote for. The people they've got on the list are Tony Adams, Aguero, Campbell, Cech, Andy Cole, Ashley Cole, Drogba, Evra, Les Ferdinand, Rio Ferdinand, Owen. There's so many names that you can vote for on there. If I was to look at
Cole stands out.
Aguero
stands out.
Yeah, if I was to name 6 players off that list now that are on there looking at it, Ashley Cole's got to go in, and probably the best left back in
ever
Premier League history. There's no doubt. Rio Ferdinand has to be on there for what he won in this game as an example. Paul Scholes has to be on there. John Terry probably has to go in there. Again, he's there to be voted for. Morality-wise, some people would say no.
What about Aguero?
Aguero, yes. I would put... I would put Andy Cole on there before Aguero. Andy Cole achieved so much more in the Premier League. Won more Premier Leagues. Won a Champions League. Was part of the treble-winning team. Andy Cole stands out there for me. Someone that should be on there. Ian Wright's available on that list. Man Vidic. I'm very biased towards Man United, but it isn't because I'm a Man United fan.
Clearly.
No, it isn't. No, it's because No, because when you're breaking down these players, they're all so good. What do I use to separate the best of the best from? Well, who won the most prems and most domestic trophies, and who had European success in that time span as well? Well, I look at Vincent Kompany, I look at Rio Ferdinand. If it's between those two, I'm picking Rio, because what Rio won domestically in Europe outweighs what Kompany did. And as players, what is there to really split between the two of them? Very, very little, in my opinion. If I look at, for instance, like Robin Van Persie's on the list, I wouldn't put Robin Van Persie in over Aguero, because what Aguero, his goal rates and the level of trophies he won.
Do we have to take into consideration era then? You know what I mean? Because Aguero, it's not really, he wasn't in the same era as some of the players that you're talking about, like Scholes. You know what I mean?
No, but that's why I think the only thing that's comparable across eras is what you won. Style of football changes, right? So, for instance, look, because that is true. Because look, Petr Cech and Peter Schmeichel are on this list, and Edwin van der Sar. Those three goalkeepers in their era were outstanding, but goalkeeping has changed, right? So you would say now that Alissons and Edisons are overall better football players than those goalkeepers were, because they can play with their feet, right? But you can't compare era to era. Fullbacks 10 years ago weren't expected to create and score like they do now. So,
but Aguero was the best striker in his era, even though he wasn't. Yeah,
you'd put him above Wayne Rooney. You'd put him above Drogba.
I don't know. Rooney's already in there. But besides anybody else in that era, doesn't he get some sort of something for that, or no?
Maybe. But I put Aguero. I said Aguero could go in.
Did you?
Aguero was in my 6. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh no, I didn't think you said he was in your 6.
No, Aguero is definitely someone. I think he's one of the most underrated players in there. I'm talking more when I look at, say, a Rio Ferdinand or a Kompany. If I've got a split between the two of them. But in terms of 6, it's hard. Ashley Cole's got to be on that list, like I say. I'd put Aguero in there, like I've mentioned. I'd throw Rio Ferdinand in there. I'd throw Paul Scholes in there. I'd throw... Wow, it gets hard then. When I'm looking at these other names. Patrice Evra, Vidic, Ian Wright. I'd probably look at Ian Wright as well. Ian Wright was a star.
I would say Righty should go
Ian Wright should go in there. And then I'm going to leave John Terry out for what he said and put Yaya Toure in instead.
Okay.
But then Sol Campbell's on that list. And Sol Campbell is great. It's hard. But as I say, like, it's a difficult one when you look at those players. Drogba's on that list. Patrice Evra's on that list. How about you? Who'd be your 6?
Aguero for sure. I think he's just so underrated and underappreciated for some reason. Ashley Cole for sure. Ian Wright. Who else is on there? Is Rio Ferdinand on there? Yeah.
He is, of course he is.
Rio Ferdinand. 100%. Scholes is on there as well.
Scholes is there, yeah. I'm really shocked he ain't been put in already.
So that's like, I think that's like 5.
Yeah.
There. Who else is on there? You said
Peter Schmeichel, Van der Sar, Van Persie, Vidic, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Teddy Sheringham, Gary Neville, Michael Owen, Matt Letizia, Robbie Fowler, Les Ferdinand, who's of course the uncle of Rio and Anton. Who else is on there? I think, or maybe cousins they were. Yeah, Petr Cech's there.
I think Cech has a shout, because in his era, he was definitely like the best goalkeeper.
Petr Cech was class, yeah.
So I would say, that would be my 5. There
we go. It's an interesting. David here says this is stupid. Why would you include Champions League? Like, I do, and I tell you as to why I do. Because if you're delivering on all fronts, it's harder. It's one of the reasons why someone like a Matt Letizia is going to struggle for me, because he was just basically playing Premier League football. Southampton were going out early in most cup competitions. You're talking about like other attackers who are in 3-4 competitions all year, delivering in all of them. It's harder. That's why it's important, in my opinion. Terry, stop being biased. It's not about bias. It's Man United players have achieved more. If I was to name the best Premier League players of the last 6 years, there'd barely be a mention of Man United. It would be City. It would be Liverpool. It would be Chelsea. Bit of Leicester maybe in that as well. A bit of Tottenham in that because they had some good teams that would dominate. It's about the names that are on the list, my friend. It isn't about bias. Man United dominated the Premier League for the first 20 years. It's as simple and as straightforward as that, my friend. Chelsea. I need to ask you about this. This is an important one for me. Obviously, I did a bit of content on it last night about the no to rickets thing that's going on. And a lot of Chelsea fans don't want it there. But I want to ask you a question, and it is a difficult question. Do you believe that all these Chelsea fans, do you believe that they are really dead set against the Ricketts as a family for what they've said and their connections to Trump and the Republican Party? Or do you believe some of them are just doing whatever they can to try and put the club off from having American owners per se? Like, I'm seeing a lot of that. The reason I'm asking is because a lot of people commented on my video last night and sort of said Chelsea fans are just virtue signaling because they're scared of getting an American consortium. So they're using everything they can to stop that. They don't really care about what they've said or done before. Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I do think that there are some Chelsea fans that I do believe are really want owners that they can feel good about, you know, and how they get their money and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to say this is all, but some I do feel like this is just, I got a whiff of what the Ricketts family did. You know, they had that racist email that had come out and like, oh, this is a good reason to say that I don't want this family to own Chelsea Football Club. Especially because they're American. And what's weird is because like, this is one person in particular, I will not say who it was, but it's a Chelsea fan. And in one breath, it was say no to Ricketts. But then there was a post that came out around another Saudi consortium. And they were like, yes, that's the person that we want. And I just find it, if you're not going to do a detailed background check on every single owner's group that comes out, first of all, if you don't, then long story short, like every single one of these consortiums probably has somebody involved in it that has done something in their past or is doing something currently that is distasteful for a large group of people, right? But if you just pick and choose which ones are okay and which ones are not based on maybe the fact that that's just not the owner that you want, it's just confirmation bias at that point. It's just, I don't want these American owners. So this one racist email came out. So boom, that's my reason why. But, oh, this person, and then it's like even the mention of this is what their net worth is. I'm seeing a lot of their net worth is this. So that's better. What Chelsea fans need to be worried about is, are the owners going to run the club with the club as the best interest, like at the club's best interest, and is going to keep the club safe? Like that is kind of what they need to be worried about. But I think there's an overemphasis on, I don't want to be like Manchester United and Arsenal with their American owners, because I don't think they're going to spend money the way that Roman did. And, you know, I want whoever's going to have the most money because I want to keep that blank check coming. None of that is really guaranteed. If you get a Saudi owner, that doesn't mean that a blank check is coming. And if you get an American owner, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be ran poorly. And I feel like there's a kind of like a mismatch there. It doesn't really make sense. And so with the whole Ricketts thing, I do feel like it's an overemphasis on the fact that they're Americans. And yeah, the Ricketts family is not a good ownership group. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, they're not. But there's other owners that are there that are American that could probably do a better job. So I find it strange. And if it's weird because you guys know what Roman is about, but none of you guys cared about what he was doing to get his money because he was doing what was best for you. Yeah. But now you care about the Ricketts. The only difference between Roman and the Ricketts is that you think one is a better owner than the other. That's all.
Well, this is the thing. I know a lot of Chelsea fans are worried because they're not great owners. The way they run the Cubs is poor. They're not respected in that way. This is the question. What their father has said about Islam is reprehensible and absolutely right to be called out. But if the Ricketts family were regarded as astoundingly good owners, I do think a large percentage of Chelsea fans would say, yeah, but that's the father, it's not them. So I almost feel like not all, and this is what I want to. Some Chelsea fans will have great morals and they would do this to every single owner that's coming out. Because what should now happen with this campaign, and by the way, it's going to happen for you because the Ricketts family will already be searching for dirt on people. I keep hearing Saudi media group are a private equity company, no direct involvement with the government. Well, no one knows that yet because you don't know who the investors are in the consortium. We don't know who any of the investors really are yet in any of the consortiums and what background checks have been done on them. The point is, and I'm asking a question here, are you willing to accept morally poor owners if they run the club well? Or is it the running the club well? Is that more important than their morality, or is their morality more important than how they run the club? What if the Chicago Cubs owners were the worst owners that you could have, but they were the most morally grounded? Would you pick them? Would you want the most moral? Like, I just want to understand where they're coming from because Chelsea fans are kind of setting themselves up for every fan base to come at them hard. You know, I've seen Newcastle fans kind of talk about how the Ricketts family shouldn't come in. It's reprehensible. And they're getting called out because it was like, well, where are your tweets about your owners and things they've done? And then you get into a very murky world of politics. And when I say murky, because you might support one government and I might support another style of government. But there are millions of people that find each of those things evil. How far do you take this when you start to bring it up? And look, I, for one, don't like the idea of the Ricketts. One, they don't run clubs well. And everyone knows I care about these clubs in the UK being run by people running clubs well. Secondly, I think that the actions of the father and again, on paper, this is the thing I was saying about the Saudi media group being connected to the government. On paper, Ricketts Sr. that said these things isn't connected to this bid. But you're an idiot if you think he isn't involved in some capacity. It's family money. It's a family matter. They're involved, right? Sometimes it's not what you know on paper. It's what you know in reality. And I just think Chelsea fans, and I saw quite a few Chelsea fans be really honest in the comment section last night. And they were just like, listen, my only thing I care about is that they run the club bad or not. And these guys are terrible owners. That's all I care about. And I saw them getting cooked. I didn't like the opinion they gave, but I thought at least you're being honest and saying what you actually think. You've muted yourself. I can't hear you. You've muted yourself.
Sorry. But that's actually what it is, though, because we have some power, but the fans don't really get to choose who owns their club all the time. So I do think that we tend to focus mostly on like what's going to be best for what we're going to see on the pitch, what's going to be best for our community, what's going to be best for that. You know, I think that's what's most important. And so to fans. So I don't actually think it's that like, oh my gosh, if a Chelsea fan says, you know what, I don't want the Ricketts because they, you know, the Cubs haven't won anything for 90 years. You know, I actually don't think that that's that bad to say because as a fan, I think for the most part, you're only required to really care about what's going to happen on the pitch. Morality and all that other stuff, I think, is used as a tool to kind of make your argument stand out a little bit more, but we all just kind of care about what's going on the pitch. So, well, I mean, that's honest. I feel like
I agree. Jeff here says politics in football has become popular in recent times. You even said you didn't know much about Rome before this. Stop waffling, Terry. But you're not getting my point, Jeff. You're hearing what I'm saying as a criticism of Chelsea. It's not. I am not going to criticize whoever gets a club. I didn't criticize the Saudis. I didn't criticize because I'm never, you're not hearing this right. And this is what happens with these conversations. Chelsea fans' backs go up, some of them. No, we want this, we want that. It's not about this. I don't believe you. Man United fans would do the same thing. The reason that I don't condemn owners for anything they've done wrong in the past is because I don't know who's going to own my club next. And somebody will buy the club off the Glazers one day. These things happen. I'm not going to sit there and make a rod for my own back. I'm not going to, and this is what I said to a few of my Chelsea pals privately last night. So be careful what you're putting out there and tweeting. We can't have anyone like this at the club. What if someone that's invested in a consortium that's about to win the bid? What if a story comes out and emails come out of them doing something sexist, them doing something homophobic, them doing something, you know, X, Y, or Z? I don't know what it is. I just throw out some example. What are you going to say then? Oh, shit, yeah. Well, then you're going to have to say the same thing. And now you have to condemn your new owners, but you're not. You're going to celebrate them. And then you're just going to have everyone come for you. I'm like, I would just keep the powder dry a little bit from the morality stuff because it's going to bite you in the backside. That's all that's going to happen, Jeff.
And a lot of times we don't actually look into it enough. to really have a substantial argument. I do feel like there's some people that are just glazing over it. And like, if you look at any of these billionaires, you're going to be able to find something sexist, racist, politically incorrect. You're going to find something. So for me, it's just more like, okay, if you just don't want ricketts because they're American and not going to spend. And I know that that's a real thing because in the chat, I've seen like at least 10 people put that. I don't want ricketts because they're not American ownership means you're not going to spend. And Chelsea fans have been used to having a blank check. So it goes against what they actually want. Just be honest. It's fine.
I hear you.
I don't hate you for that.
Mo, why are you painting everyone with the same brush? No one has done that. I've literally said some. I literally said, Mo, some Chelsea fans will care about every element of this. The morality comes before anything else. But I believe some are capping. I believe some are more concerned they're bad owners, as in how they run the club, than anything else. But what they've done is a convenient, it's almost, this is the kind of smoking gun we needed to get rid of them, but the motivation is something else. There's a comment here that says, ideally, moral and quality football decisions, both, but I'd rather support a moral owner. At the end of the day, anyone with that much cash isn't a saint. And do you know what, Moose? Thank you for being honest. I think there's being a saint, and then there's being racist. There's not being a saint, and then there's being evil. I think there is a difference between those two things, as it were. Woody Johnson, the Ricketts family, would be worse than having Man U or Arsenal's ownership because they will make the club similar to their representative teams in the USA. I hear you on that. We have some more comments here. I'm resigned to the fact that we will probably have American US owners, but the Ricketts family are not for us in just ownership terms. They have done a bad job with the Cubs. And I hear you on that, brother. And I agree with you. I'm just saying to people that are making it all about the horrible emails that he sent, that you are potentially setting yourselves up for failure. Because if the Chelsea board come out and say they announced the 4 candidates today, and they say we didn't consider the Ricketts family because of those emails, what do you think the Ricketts family and their supporters are going to do? They're probably already doing it, digging up dirt, and they're going to go, right, the 4 people you've bid, we've got these emails, this video footage, this accusation, this comment, 3 of the investors in this believe in that. And then you find yourselves on a sticky wicket. You find yourself in a position where, because you've made a morality call to not have the Ricketts family in, you now have got to do the same thing for everybody else. And I don't think Chelsea will even say that. I think if Chelsea say no to the Ricketts family, they'll put it all down to the bid not being right. They will not mention, in my opinion, the morality side of things, because you leave yourself open to being shot down. If Chelsea do that, and it isn't that, like, people will say, what you'll get this reaction as well. How dare Chelsea not say that they said no to them because of those emails? Chelsea can't afford to it's political. They can't put themselves in that fight, because that means any time in the future, if anything comes out, they're fucked. They put themselves in a bad position. They always do.
I would just say, Chelsea fans, ask yourself this question. If the UK government had not sanctioned Roman and he was still, the owner of your club, but you knew about his connection to Putin and it was very clear that it was there, would you want him out? Would you say, you know what, this is morally incorrect, I don't want him here? Would you be strong enough to go on Twitter and say, you know what, I want Roman out? You wouldn't. Be honest with yourself. You wouldn't. Morality is only coming into question now because of the specific family and the fact that they're American owners. And
James here says, why don't you talk about Arsenal and Ozil? Did at the time.
What did you think? What did you think about it? Because there's some people in the chat saying that Arsenal got rid of Ozil because of that situation. I don't necessarily feel like that's 100% true.
I don't think it was the only reason. I think it certainly played a part in it. But I agree with people's claims here. It's almost, if you're going to have politics in sport for certain subject matters, I think you should have it in there for others. But then what everybody's got to remember is politics is politics. So when a said country, an organization, is friendly with a country committing what others feel is an atrocity, and I'm talking in general terms, not about this specific example, you're never going to get the condemnation like when a country that you are allies with is being mistreated by a country you're not allies with. That's the point of politics, and that's why it's that's why what you don't see me doing is coming out and condemning any of these owners or any of these things, because at some point you get damaged. I don't want to come out and be like, no to Middle East owners because of all these things their countries do wrong that don't match my way of life. And then Man United get bought by somebody from the Middle East, and I'm left looking like
You're
a
in the
dickhead.
mud. Yeah,
Like I
exactly.
saw so many other YouTubers looking like dickheads in the last year. And I'm like, see, I don't want to do that to myself. So I just keep my powder dry. I have my own personal standpoints on things, but I also understand in this world that there's sometimes where my politics and things I think that should be done will be overlooked by other people because at this moment in time, the Overton window has shifted and it isn't an important thing to condemn or chastise or push down. And that's the nature of the beast.
And this also goes back to remembering that your club is a business. And I know that people don't like to hear it that way, but businesses will always do what's best for them, really. And that's why they'll only come out and speak on certain causes that are globally considered to be something that you should back or be against. That's why you see like Black Lives Matters, you see the rainbow captain's armbands. Those are globally okay to back and be for. It's like everybody decides that it's okay. I'm not saying that they don't actually care about it, but it's like we have our personal things that are important to us. Ozil had something that was really personal and important to him, but for Arsenal, because of who their sponsors are, it wasn't in their best interest as a business to back Ozil's cause. It may not be right, but that's I hate to say it, but the world is not it's not rainbows and butterflies, you guys. That's kind of how things are.
And this is the thing. Some people will take that as you not caring about those things. It isn't what I do or do not care about. I saw Saeed from, of course, his own channel, DR and the Big Six sort of tweet about why wasn't when the Ukraine thing, why wasn't there this energy to this I think to the Ozil thing. And I agree with him. There wasn't that same energy towards it. But I also know why there isn't. And that's the way it is, and it's always going to be, and there's nothing much we can change about it. But I do hear you, James Lowe. I'm a Chelsea fan, Terry. I don't care about the morality because we ourselves are moral at all times. That's BS. Jets and Cubs are run poorly. Don't want them. And Andre, listen, I thank you for being honest about that. Like for you as an individual, and of course, some Chelsea fans won't care about it. Some do. Truth be told, there's no proof from the government saying Roman has any links to Putin leading to the war. Ukraine press today in the Wall Street Journal asked Biden not to sanction Roman.
I'm not saying that there is, but I'm just saying we can get off this subject because if people don't see the links and you don't get sanctioned if there's nothing there. But there's nothing concrete, so it's all just kind of like out there in the air. But if it came out, would you have been prepared to condemn Roman the way that you are saying no to Ricketts?
Well, I think
that's my question.
It's even if it was revisited how Roman made his money now, and it was because a lot of Chelsea fans saw that the Sky Sports thing from 2013. I didn't even know this, right? Mm-hmm. Would they want if nothing was happening between the Ukraine and Russia and it was all pushed out again how Roman made his money? Would Chelsea fans go, he's got to sell for that, we can't have him here? I don't think they would. And I think that a lot of Chelsea fans, not all, a lot, if they had an owner whose father sent a horrible message of this ain't bad 50, 100 years ago, whatever it was, but they were running the club well, I think most Chelsea fans would make an exception for it. And do you know how I know this? Do you know the case in point? If John Terry were one of the best centre-backs in the world and one of the best centre-backs in the league, he was an average fringe player, Chelsea fans would have hounded him out of the football club for what he did to Anton Ferdinand. But because of how good a player he was and how important he was to their team, a lot of Chelsea fans made concessions, excuses, or forgave him for it. And I'm not blaming Chelsea fans here. Do you know why? Every single other fan base would do exactly the same. This isn't a Chelsea are this. For me, I look at this as, again, another slippery slope thing. And we saw it with Newcastle fans. All the tweets got dragged up and all the comments got dragged up from... I mean, I'm a big fan of True Geordie. The amount of people that were pulling up things that he said about Roman's money, Man City's money, and then him celebrating when the Saudis took over Newcastle. If you're prepared to be that meme, if you're prepared to have people continually attack you on socials for the opinions you've had before, then say what you want. I'm stating, if you're not someone who's going to handle that very well, keep your mouth shut because people will come for you because they're seeing it. And that's also because rival fans are like that. Rival fans, all they really want is to put you in the mud. Thank you to hear for that super chat. Do we though, because not a single person has been able to prove anything, and even in court too, it's been all but it's been able to prove anything, even in court 2-2, it's been all hearsay. Listen, and Sheriff, look, I understand and hear that and understand where you're coming from. Of course, we'll see what comes out in the wood through this. Like I said a few weeks ago, I spoke to a few good Chelsea friends of mine. I gave them the advice of I would keep your powder dry on defending Roman, because you don't want it to come out that he has been in connection and then there's digital evidence everywhere of you backing someone who's done something wrong. Keep your powder dry, stay in the middle. Sometimes the safest place to be when you literally have no internal knowledge on the circumstance. How highly do you rate Kovacic? World class, in my opinion. I think he's a top class player myself. Very, very good player indeed. Jesse, would you condemn the Cronkies if he was close to Obama, who killed Libyans and Syrians?
Yeah, I mean, my personal politics, like, just to let you guys know, like, I'm a Democrat, and so, like, do I love that my owners are definitely like Trump supporters and have probably put money into his campaign? And, no, I don't. But I'm not, I have to be honest, it's not going to stop me from supporting my club. And do I love the Cronkies? No, I don't. But it's such a slippery slope here, because I believe whatever owners that you get, there's going to be some level of something that they do that doesn't really fit your moral eye, right? And so I don't want to sit here and say like Cronky out, Cronky out, Cronky out because of that. I prefer to keep it about what's going on the football pitch, even though I don't love what maybe they do politically on that side, if that makes sense. I have to compartmentalize it. Like, that's just how I work.
But you have to though, Jess. And do you know why you have to? Do you know why you have to? Because again, like I've said, some people will not find the way Obama or Trump or Boris and the Conservatives behave. Some people will not find how they behave to be evil or like there's always unmoral things that people do. But some people will be supportive of those groups. Some people will think they're the worst people on earth. And you'll know that being an American, there are some people in America that think Obama is an absolute scoundrel. Some people think the same about Donald Trump. The problem you've got, if that's where you draw the line, you'll find that you're never going to find like I said in the video yesterday, where do you draw the line? What is the level of behavior or mistakes made or bad things done? What is it? Stole from his father's wallet when he was a kid? Is it he beat up a child at school? Is it, bunked off school? Is it like doesn't
and then I have to apply it to my life as well, right? Because if I sit there and I say I want Cronkies out, then I won't be able to buy anything. I won't be able to eat anything. I won't be able to drive anything. I won't be able to do anything anymore.
This is the point. Someone here says, so Terry, you're saying you agree with the Russians invading. No, when have I said that? How have you fucking got that in your head, you silly prick? How have you literally taken that out of what I've said? You're probably doing it's not that at all. It's like the point I'm making. If you start saying, right, these people can't own football clubs, I'm not buying that company's product because of this, you'll end up in a world where you're not eating and drinking. You can't watch any kind of TV, any kind of movie, do anything fun, because if you do enough research, they invest in this, and they supported this, and they put money into that, and no, they own this airline, I can't go on the holiday, the football boots my son wants are owned by this company, they've got £1 billion investment from these people whose father once upon a time dropped a bomb on this country. If you keep doing that, you'll do nothing in life. And that's why I asked the question, where do you draw the line?
Yeah. I mean, I worked for a company that I worked for them for 5 years, and they backed the Trump administration. And that was difficult for me. Like knowing that the owner of the company was a huge Trump supporter. But that job gave me some of the best opportunities I've ever had. And so I love that job. And it was very difficult for me to hate the job and want to not make money from that job and not to enjoy it because of that. And that's why it's really difficult. I apply the same thing to my football club. it's hard for me to, and I'm not about to sit here and not have nothing.
I completely hear you. And I've said it before, like, I'm very much the same. For me, Terry, if they have a very public political problems and have evidence of running a club badly, then they should not be able to own Chelsea. And I don't disagree with your take on that. The point is, what if they run clubs well but have a bad political problem? What if they run clubs badly but don't have bad political problems? Ideally, you want someone who's perfect in morality and are brilliant at running a club. But I don't think you're going to find that because everyone's level of morality is different. And I'm just intrigued to know where people draw the line. That is the question. It's one of them ones there. I like this from Deborah. She says, awake, not woke. I kind of like that. I think that's actually important. When it comes to these types of things, as we say, like I hate it when I see celebrities talk about global warming, but then you find out they're on private jets all the time, yachts everywhere, driving big cars around. It's like I can't listen to you guys, man. I hate that sort of stuff. But there we go. Listen, everyone who's tuned in, thank you very, very much. We've got another super chat actually. How and why was Nick Candy able to find out the UK intention to sanction Roma before the invasion? Because he's politically connected. He's connected to the Conservatives. We already know that, my friend. Read the Athletic argument. But again, some people look at the Conservative Party as being hell on earth and evil. But there we go. Billionaires give money to both Democrats and Republicans. It's all about buying who is in power. That's the game. And I think
I understand that. Like, that's why I say, like, I just can't. I have to compartmentalize it.
Absolutely agree. Everyone who's tuned in, people, thank you. Take care. Goodbye. God bless.